Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of The New Standard. And you're checking us out on November 19th, 2023. And before we hop into the program in earnest, I want to say happy birthday to my daughter, Charmian Mims, aka number one, aka Maney 5000, aka Mrs. Mims, and aka Nija's mom. Congratulations to you celebrating a birthday in Las Vegas. Hopefully, you were able to see some of the FS1 race or the F1 race, or FS1 is Fox Sports, but the FS race. Also, happy birthday to Jeremy. And big up to the brothers of Omega Sci-Fi celebrating another year in existence. Big up to Mel and any of the other Qs that listen to the program. Neal, what's up with you, my friend? Big Neal to my left.
This is a rough day, a rough afternoon. Your Pittsburgh Steelers fall 13-10 to the Browns this afternoon at the crappy Brown Stadium, whatever it's called nowadays, Third Energy or something like that. Steelers put up, I thought, a pretty admirable defensive performance, particularly in the second half. They limited a Browns offense that was rolling pretty effectively early on. The offense, though, of Pittsburgh never got out of gear, facing, in fairness, a very good Cleveland Browns defense. Never got anything rolling. They can't say they didn't have their opportunities. Basically, the entire positive offensive performance today was held by backup running back, former undrafted free agent Jaylen Warren, who grossly outproduced all of the draft picks on the field today. I had his stats in front of me, and of course, my computer freezes. 129 yards on the ground on 9 carries. 9 carries for Warren today. In case you're counting at home, Najee Harris had 12 carries for 35 yards. A very Najee-like game. 2.9 a carry with a long of 17. So we had 11 carries for about, 18 yards. I can't do math. Warren got the ball. Warren made things happen with the ball. Nobody else on offense did anything remotely worth mentioning in a positive light. We don't have to be positive on this show, though, do we, Lance? Not after a 13-10 loss to a rival in a critically important game. The Steelers had they have a favorable schedule. They had an excellent opportunity. Should have they won this game to proceed with reckless abandon forward in the AFC North, this game would have been significant for them. To lose it in the fashion that they lost it, beyond frustrating. And this one's going to be talked about for a long time, I'm sure. This was a miserable game.
I have a couple questions to ask you about Kenny Pickett. And before we hop into those, we're going to jump into some more stats from the game. Also, if you want to join the experience after the game or at any time, make sure you go to YouTube and do a search for The New Standard and Lance Williams and or Neal Coulon and or both of us. And if you're listening to the show right now, please hit us with a like and subscribe. However you get your podcast, you can do a search for The New Standard as well. Again, big up to the brothers of Omega Sci-Fi. Big up to Melvin if you are out there. Big up to you guys for, I think, 111 years. Maybe, don't get me wrong. I think 112 years that the fraternity has been around. Great names, part of fraternity. Count Basie, Michael Jordan, Jalen Hurts, in fact, to speak of just a few. Also, if you want to participate in the program, make sure if you're listening to hit us with a comment, hit us with your comments about today's game. And before we hop into it, Neal very astutely pointed to a very interesting stat in the game where actually, and you're rarely going to see this in today's football, but the Steelers actually averaged more yards rushing, or double the yards per carry than they did running the football. About double, 6.6 yards per carry to 3.8. Also in the game, a very weird stat, as well as that Jaylen Warren had 129 yards rushing to Kenny Pickett's 106 yards passing. Kenny Pickett's made about, correct me if I'm wrong, Neal, about 22, 23 starts. He started a lot of football games, been able to make some plays in the fourth quarter, wasn't able to do that today. Where are they at, or where do you think they are in their evaluation of Kenny Pickett as the future quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Is it time to let him grip it and rip it and see what you have? Do you just keep trying to manage it to win these games so you can get to the playoffs and get smashed in the first round? I mean, what's your modus of operandi moving forward with Kenny Pickett, and how do you manage it? I mean, you got to manage it to win football games, obviously, but from a perspective of about maybe 35,000 feet, what does it look like to you, and what do you think the direction should be?
I'll be honest. Where I sit right now, I don't want to hear what the team has to say about it, because they're not going to do anything. The reality is they are playing a game with a backup quarterback, and they're not going to be successful in the long run. For everybody, myself included, who said and has said many times, we don't know how they're winning games. This is just crazy. The bottom's going to fall out eventually. This game is a strong indication of that. What you saw today, even against a good defense, was a team collectively. This isn't even just Pickett, but Pickett is ultimately the catalyst of it all. It's a team that could not match up one-on-one against its opponent. They lost nearly every play of this game. One of the main things that stands out to me, and I'm not going to go into the math behind this, but as kind of quirky as passer rating as a stat is, the fact that Kenny Pickett was 15 of 28 for 106 yards, that's 3.8 yards an attempt, which is worse than even his miserable career average. To have those numbers without an interception and to have a passer rating in game of 62.5, that's there are quarterbacks that throw for 2 interceptions in a game that have a higher rating than that. It's miserable, and it's very telling of Pickett today as well as the offense in general. You are not getting, as Mike Tomlin would say, varsity level performances out of your quarterback. At the same time, I have very little faith that the team would be serious about changing anything, bringing in somebody else. I don't have any reason to think that Kenny Pickett is going to be a consistently outstanding performer at the NFL level as a starter. He's just not. You can't see that anymore. When you look at what Pickett's main kind of claim to fame at this point has been fourth quarter Kenny. He's played well late. He's had game-winning drives. I understand you don't do that all the time, but when you can't do it and you still haven't done anything for 3 quarters, it shines even brighter. And today, he had 2 opportunities for game-winning drives, and he couldn't complete a pass to save his life. Part of the reason for that probably is because he's got one hand wrapped around his throat when he's trying to throw the ball. He had a terrible game today. I don't know if you can play a whole lot worse without having turned the ball over. But at this point, if they can do something to, and to be fair, give him some time. He did not have a whole lot of that today. Give him some time and get him to release the ball on time, on schedule, to a receiver who's actually open to where the ball needs to go. And the reason I'm listing all these things off is I can give you at least one example of Pickett's failure to do all of those things today. Wasn't just pressure. He got pressured plenty. He made good decisions when he was pressured. And we'll get into that dumpster fire of a unit today. Offensive line, I don't know if they've played worse than what they did today against a very good opponent. I don't want to take anything away from Cleveland. Back when Pittsburgh was good, I always hated opponents talking about how terrible their offensive line was. Like, well, we're just more man than you. That's all it is. We beat you up front and straight. Cleveland did that today, and good for them for doing it. Jim Schwartz is a great coach. He's got a great unit going over there. Pittsburgh, though, did very little to prevent them from doing anything. I joked at one point, and I'm not even sure if I'm all, really all that trying to be funny about it. It looked like Dan Moore broke his leg or something. I mean, I don't know if we've seen an NFL tackle react as slowly as he did throughout the game. Didn't help Pickett at all. Receivers didn't help Pickett, but they did their damnedest. Lance, you and I were talking offline. The catch that George Pickens made along the sideline later in the game, it was a horrendous throw by Pickett. Pickett was 3 yards off on that throw. Pickens had to readjust his body with his ass on the ground to make that catch extended in the opposite direction. That's not the first time we have seen a throw like that from Pickett. You don't see that often at the NFL level. You just don't. I can't, I'll go on for days. Cut me off, please. He was horrible, absolutely horrible today. And anything the team would have to say about his development, how he's growing, this and that, I don't want to hear it anymore. It's over. Okay. He cannot play at this level. They're not going to be successful consistently with what they've seen.
There are some to your point, there are some incredible numbers in this game. And when you see them, to your point about Kenny Pickett, the Steelers had a net of 77 yards passing. Jalen Warren almost had 77 yards rushing on his touchdown play. 77 yards of net passing. That's absolutely incredible. When you look at the game book as well, you've got Cleveland didn't average 4 yards a play in the game and won the game. They averaged less than 4 yards per play in passing and in rushing, and they won the game. This was this was a very winnable game. You have a guy making his second start. Everything is there for you. But again, the Steelers sputter on offense. We talk about the weighty downs, the badonka-donk downs. Once again, Steelers 3 of 14 on third down. And in this game, you had both teams converted less than 30% of their third downs, and a team actually won. Cleveland only converted 4 of 17 third downs. This was an abysmal game by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And again, the stat that really jumps out is Cleveland won the game averaging 3.5 yards a carry, or 5 yards a play, totally on offense.
Throw this in there too, Lance. I didn't even see this, but the Steelers and Browns both averaged 3.8 yards a pass.
Yes.
That's amazing. In a fair weather game. This is do you remember the game against the Bengals, pre-Burrow Bengals? Duck Hodges, I think, started, and then Rudolph came in, or maybe Rudolph started and he got benched for Duck. The Browns trotted out, or the Bengals trotted off some nobody, that Ryan Finley guy who was somehow worse than the two quarterbacks we saw today. That was the quarterback matchup in that game. That looked like this today. And that wasn't a game between two 6-3 teams going in.
This was abysmal. The Steelers had 9 punts in the game, 355. They almost tripled their offense in punts. This is, but I'm not surprised. We can be disgusted by it. It was definitely a terrible performance, but none of us should be surprised by this. This is what we've been seeing all year. And I'm not going to use that dreaded word, the dreaded S word, sustainability. But we all know that when you play this type of football, you can win these games and you can lose these games. All of these games are around 1-score games. That's what they're going to be. And like Brother Jay said, out everything. And that's what it was. We're at a point we're at a point where, you're going to see this every single week. And I know that the job every week is to try to win that particular game, but I'm hoping that there is enough that they have seen from the quarterback and or coordinator to go in a different direction. And if they do go in a different direction, the fan base is going to have to be patient, because going in a different direction means starting over. But that might not be any different than where they're at, because
I'm not sure. I don't know if you make it. Well, maybe that's the question. Ask the question. You don't have a quarterback. So are you not starting over every year?
Yeah.
What difference does it make? You are still a year away from having a quarterback. If you don't have a quarterback that can play, and I'm sorry, 15 of 28 for 106 yards in a game that is not being played in a monsoon is not a good quarterback. I don't care what happened in the game. There's no way you can look at that stat line and say he played really well. He didn't. And that's not even far from his average. The guy can't play. It's as simple as that. I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm not trying to bash him as a person. If he is incapable, though, of making progressions in order to make a deeper passing game, a more varied passing game, if he's still unable to do that after this long, I don't know what you think you have, but you need to find another solution, or you need to fix him. What's more likely, though? Do you think he's going to turn into a good quarterback now? You give him 7 years of this, eventually he's going to figure out how to throw to a secondary or a tertiary receiver. It's not going to happen. We've seen enough for long enough. He's just not very good. He could be a backup. He's experienced. He's going to be in the league for 10 years regardless, because now he's played a bunch. He is not good enough to have. Honestly, some other guys and I were talking about this prior to the show, Lance. I'm trying to be as objective as I can, and I'm pretty wound up here. If you were to look at Kenny Pickett, his full body of work, every game together, take the offseason out, put every game together in a line, you watch over him, he is a stronger armed, a little bit more talented Duck Hodges. He makes some throws here and there, but by and large, he's not very good. And we saw today, he's got some mobility. They've tethered him to the pocket, which he's not comfortable with. We saw that plenty of times. He took 2 sacks. He probably shouldn't have today. Ran and made 2 decent plays out of it as well. He can do some things, but when the rubber meets the road, you're going to lose, at least as many games as you win with him starting a quarterback. And some of those games are not going to be games you should have lost, like today.
How dare you disrespect Duck Hodges? At least at least the one thing about Duck, and this is a quality that you have to play quarterback in the National Football League. Duck had big D energy. He would let her rip, whether he should have or should not have. Duck let her rip. But let me ask this question from Edward James Gardner. And big up to everybody on the program. You are checking out Their Luck Ran Out, the Steelers versus Browns post-game show, The New Standard, on November 19th. Please like and subscribe to the program. Let's jump into this question, Neal. I want you to hit this one. Also, how hard of a reset button would the Steelers have to do to get a QB in 2024? My hope is that it's as simple as using our first-round pick without trading the farm.
Well, if they completely fall apart, lose every game the rest of the year, you're probably drafting top 12. And if that's the case, you're going to have to trade up a lot to get one of the 2 top quarterbacks, your Caleb Williams, your Drake Mays, those kinds of guys. There are others who are out there I think are pretty good, but if you're talking about trading the farm, if he's the 3rd quarterback taken in the draft, something that nobody else knows. And that's a dangerous place to be when you're a talent evaluator. So you're not going to get up to 1 or 2 without a significant haul. And 1 is not going to be an option this year. That makes 2 even more valuable. And usually what happens when you have 2 high-end quarterback prospects like we do, there are trades for at least one of those picks, usually the second one. And more often than not, the second one is far less than the first one. So if they want to get up to get a Drake May type, I'm using that, I'm couching that just because in the off chance it's not Drake May, probably Drake May. If you want to move up and get him, it's going to cost a fortune because you're going to be bidding against 3 other teams that really need a quarterback, and he's a good one. So to be honest, unless you want to draft another Kenny Pickett, I'm not sure this is even the right year for you to think about giving up a ton of assets. You need a high level 3, if not 4 quarterback draft for where the Steelers are going to end up being. Otherwise, you kind of have to be in the top 5 if you want that good bet. Now, that doesn't mean you can't make hay with somebody else. People are ripping Kirk Cousins all the time. Look at what Kevin O'Connell did with Kirk Cousins in the limited time that he had. He had a season and a half with him. Cousins was playing the best football of his career when he got hurt. Yeah, and that's coaching, that's development. But Cousins showed he could play the game. Pickett doesn't show that day to day. So if you need to go get a guy, you might have to spend retail and free agency, which they're not going to do, or you're going to have to give up basically your next 3 drafts for a Deshaun Watson like package to get Drake May. And even then, you're going to need a team that looks at the Steelers and say, hey, they'll probably be drafting in the top 5 for the next 3 years. I don't think they're going to think that. So honestly, they're not going to. Just the bottom line, they're kind of stuck with Pickett for now. I don't know what else they can do.
Don't worry, Eric Stifler. The criticism for Tomlin is coming up. It's queued up in 3, 2, 1. And by the way, pick up to Eric Stifler and pick up to all the new listeners on the program: Mike Botner, T Spin, T Sizzle, Anthony Picano. Big up to you guys. And Stifler, I know people had to call you Stifler your entire life. I know you got tired of being called Stifler. But let me just say this.
How's your mom?
Here's
Stifler?
Here's my
You knew that was coming.
Here's my criticism of Mike Tomlin. I don't care if you drafted Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, Trevor Lawrence. I'm trying to think of any other. Caleb Williams is going to be, I think, a fine pro. CJ Stroud. I don't care if he drafted any of those guys. Mike Tomlin is the quarterback cooler. He likes playing games like this. He does not have a problem with his football team being in games like this. We have a problem looking at it. He doesn't have a problem with his teams playing like this if they win. Like I'm not convinced that regardless of the prospect that they draft, that Mike Tomlin wouldn't kill him. Like I'm not for certain that the guy would have to be a super talented prospect. I think the only way, and I mean you're seeing it in New England as well, Mike Tomlin was very used to being the coach of a team with a veteran Hall of Fame quarterback. A lot of that stuff could be handled on that side of the ball by quarterback / coordinator. A lot of it. And you can coach the rest of the team. I don't think that Tomlin has the ability to develop a young quarterback prospect. This is what it's going to look like. So when I said fire Tomlin weeks ago, this is why. Because there's no offensive development. Offensively, they are going to tread water, in my opinion, with Mike Tomlin as the head coach. I think that's where it is, and that's where it's going to stay. And I don't think a draft is going to solve that. I mean, they may have to get I'm forgetting the name of the quarterback from the Vikings, a Kirk Cousins. You might have to get an established veteran who can play ball. That's how I think Tomlin is used to having. So he does not have the burden of having to develop a really good offense. A lot of that burden can fall on the quarterback and or coordinator. But we all know what this is going to look like next year. They're going to fire Matty Sideline, and they're going to keep Pickett, and they're going to get another coordinator. It's going to be someone you've never heard of, probably from the staff, someone
random assistant somewhere.
And it's going to look the same next year. And it's going to look the same next year.
I don't think it. I would agree with that, and it's. I've been saying, somebody else brought this up earlier. I wanted to highlight this, but you were on a roll.
Yes.
Now I can't find it, of course. The point being, this isn't a situation in which it's been different. This didn't just happen this year. This isn't exclusive to Matt Canada. It's not exclusive to Kenny Pickett. To some degree, I mean, yes, it happened under Tomlin's watch, but what are we doing here? Do we need to assign blame? If we need to do that, then it's on Tomlin. But at the same time, you're not doing that after wins. So really, you want somebody to blame when they lose. Otherwise, you'll praise the players up and down like you always do. The fact of the matter is, this team, it's treading water in the same place that it's been since Ben's elbow snapped in week 1 of 2019. This is the same team. It doesn't have any offense. It doesn't have playmakers. And we go round and round of who to blame. This is what the second offensive coordinator. What's the third one going to get next year? Why is this team going to be any different next year? Probably no reason at all. Even if they were to make a move, get rid of Tomlin, even if Tomlin were to resign or retire, the foundation they have in place right now is not it's not nearly enough to suggest all they need to do is call gooder plays and all of a sudden just blow up. It's not going to happen. Okay. They're not good enough to do that. Okay. They're just plain and simple. They're not a very talented, certainly not a very talented offensive team. Defensively, a fantastic job today. They're down 2 inside linebackers. Landon Roberts just played the game of his career. I don't know if you noticed that. He tackled everything. And it was an admirable performance without Minka, without that, Keanu Neal. They didn't even have him. They had something called, I butchered this joke. They had something called Trenton Thompson playing in the deep secondary, and he might have been the best one.
Yeah,
they had guys that made plays all game long on defense. They did a great job today. Yes, I know they're playing a rookie quarterback, but frankly, so are the Browns. If you want to look at it in terms of skill, Pickett didn't have any more than the guy with 3 last names did. So they have talent on one side of the ball. They are able to do things on one side of the ball, and that's going to keep them probably a little bit above or below 500 for however long. But until you have a quarterback, you don't have anything. So to me, it really doesn't matter as far as the coach goes, because the offensive coordinator, whoever they get, I want to keep saying this to people to understand, you are not going to get a hot shot, high level offensive coordinator prospect to come in and want to coach this team. Nobody wants to inherit this team unless they've been passed over by every other good job. The guy that's been in the league for 30 years and has never been a coordinator. That's the guy that's going to get this job. And is he going to be any better than Matt Canada? Got bad news for you. Probably not. You're not going to see it be much better.
Yeah, I mean, who wants the job? Who wants the job?
Why would you?
You got Kenny
if you have
Pickett.
Ambition, if you're my age, if you are a middle-aged dude looking to make your mark in the NFL, you want to be a head coach. You're doing really well, but now with the way the game is going, coordinators, the hotshot coordinators tend to be a little bit younger. There are 35-year-old coaches who get hired every year. What is going to make you stand out? Coming to Pittsburgh and fixing Kenny Pickett? Yeah, that'll make you stand out. Do you think you can? Or is Kenny Pickett broken? It's a good question. You look at the film during your interview, you give him a plan. These are the things you want to do. One of the things you recommend is might want to shop around for a different quarterback. When they say, okay, great, thanks for your time, and you leave, you're not going to get the job. The only guy that is going to get that job or would take that job would be one where they probably had more control over the quarterback. And your quarterback now is broken. He's not successful. There's very little to suggest that he's going to be. So why would you want it?
Yeah, I don't think this is a job that any hotshot coordinator would want. It's just because also let me add that you have an entrenched head coach that isn't going anywhere anyway. So you're not probably, you're probably not going to, why would they change it? And to G Stack's point, the Browns defense does make a lot of offenses look terrible.
Those dudes were getting after it up front. Oh my God.
But
Jim Schwartz, how about this? You want to hire a head coach simply on his coordinator merit right now? I want to hire Jim Schwartz. What he's done with that defense is remarkable. They were not a very good defensive team last couple of years. They're an elite unit now. They played their balls off. That's a good team. You can't get after it too much, but you do expect your quarterback to make NFL plays, and he didn't do that today.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate. Freiermuth came back today. In this game was only targeted one time. Didn't even notice him. He was targeted once for a catch for 7 yards. The Steelers, and I just hate to say it, this is what we're going to get every week. But before we get out of here and conclude the program, I want to thank everybody who joined us this year so far. I want to wish everybody that's on the program and everybody that listens a happy Thanksgiving if you partake in it. Make sure you guys, man, really just appreciate your family, hug everybody up, eat a lot of turkey, tryptophan, fall asleep, do all that good stuff. Don't get tackled like Neal's going to get tackled on Thursday and
Tackling.
Have a torn ACL while doing the show. But big up to everybody that's listening to the program, man. I want to wish you guys a happy holiday. Please hug up on your loved ones. Again, big up to number one. Happy birthday. Big up to the brothers of Omega Psi Phi. Big up to everybody out here that supports the program. Big up to Neal as well, who holds us down. And Neal's going to be doing a solo show on Wednesday. The Steelers are what the Steelers are. 6-4, still very much in the mix. As bad as it looked today, if they can scratch out 3 or 4 more ugly performances, they're going to get blown out in the first round of the playoffs.
They got another rookie quarterback next week. They travel to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals in another must-win game. It's basically the same thing, just against a team that has a much worse defense than Cleveland does.
Yeah, I mean, but unfortunately, they're going against Lou Adaromo, who's a fantastic coordinator. But it is what it is. This is what you're going to get. AFC North football, Steelers style, one possession games, one score games every single week. Bottom line, have fun. Do not eat stuffing, eat dressing, and eat macaroni and cheese and not pumpkin pie. You a pumpkin pie guy, Neal?
I'm not a pumpkin pie guy.
Nah, that's good. No
any other pie,
man.
there's kind of a taste every now and again, maybe. My sister makes these pumpkin bars, though. I literally eat like the whole sheet if I could. I don't know if that's like the pre-diabetes talking or what, but I'll crush that thing after the football game on Thursday, and then I'll absolutely pass out.
So you're gonna ice up your knee with a pumpkin bar while eating a pumpkin
more than my knee. It'll definitely be, and not just one pumpkin bar. It'll be like, well, depends. Can we count like 1 square foot of pumpkin bar as one?
Yes.
I don't need
Big
to
up
cut
to
it.
Raw.
I'll house the thing if I have to.
Raw Havana. That's the greatest last name of all time. Raw Cuba. That's
the guy you
dope.
don't fight.
That's super dope. And by the way, I think my daughter is going to be headed to Cuba again for the new year. But with that, we're going to conclude the program. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and Corey, the Steelers just threw another screen in the
Let me guess, Corey, incomplete. Was there A-gap pressure the second Pickett got the ball again? Because that didn't happen at all today. Let's run that play in crunch time. Great call, Matt.
Let's duck in the end zone. But with that, listeners, we're going to conclude the program. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Go Steelers. Happy Thanksgiving from us to you.